Bright days, everybody. So, a new podcast is out, this time with my good friend Samora Yeboah. It's our second podcast together. He was my first guest on the Art of Evolution podcast. And today we speak about the art of happiness, joy, how we can actualize and activate that aspect of ourselves. And also how the process of rewiring our brain, the process of rewiring our body so that it is geared towards happiness, effortless happiness. This is a process, of course. And so we talk about childhood conditioning, trauma, and how we as human beings can optimize our life design and lifestyle to support growth, to support that movement towards happiness. And this is an art, this is a science. So this is what you will be shared with today, or sharing in today, listening to this podcast. And with that, I am excited to share this with you. Connecting with Samora is always a blessing. We have such a beautiful dynamic, and the synergetic exchange was ecstatic, at least in me, and my impression was it was the same in Samora. So with that,
some people who are privileged never achieve happiness because they attribute happiness to something that is external to them, like great amass of wealth or material goods, or so on and so forth. So happiness is not really dependent or related to external circumstance. It's an internal realization. Obviously, there are certain comforts that you can have through a certain privilege, to be obviously able to have a roof over your head, to have food and the basic requirements of basic living. But happiness is not dependent or determined by external factors. So I thought that would be something that could be quite good to go into.
100%. And riffing on that, in my own journey, what I've experienced is, after I really, for a long time, for years, I used to practice, but I didn't really have nothing really manifested in the physical world that reflected, you could say, any significant levels of actualization. And it's when I took over the yoga studio, and after I started mentoring, a new dimension of happiness also opened up. Because I do feel that the two sides to happiness, the internal happiness, but when that is also reflected back at you, it amplifies. And it's like when I meet you in joy, right? When we meet each other, when we meet in joy, our internal joy amplifies.
Yeah.
The joy shared, the happiness shared in being able to facilitate, support other human beings, feeling that one's purpose, one's dharma is being fulfilled, and actually seeing that happening, it really amplifies and boosts that sense of happiness and joy. What is your experience of that?
In terms of happiness being shared?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you meet somebody and you connect on that level of pure happiness and pure intent to actually resonate with another human being on that kind of soul level, of pure awareness, then that the happiness just erupts from that connection, and it affirms your presence, and happiness can only exist in the present. And so when I connect with you, especially, like there is that joy, there is that happiness, and there is this falling away of mind, in the sense of expectation and a sense of the critic, the internal critic because there is this joyful acceptance of what is,
Yeah.
and an acknowledgement of your authentic self, rather than a judgment of like, this is who you are, this is what you do, this is these kind of factors that we kind of sometimes relate to trying to understand people.
Yeah.
It's an inner acknowledgement of what and who you are, and an acceptance, and from that acceptance comes joy.
Joy. 100%. And the playfulness, the lightheartedness, and the connection, like, I feel so central to happiness is celebration.
Yeah.
You're celebrating being.
Yeah, exactly.
You're celebrating living. And then within that context, when we meet, we always have the in-depth philosophical conversation. So we're really jamming on things that we are passionate about, that we think that we're really sincerely engaged with at the same time. And then a meeting in that passion really activates that joy. And since I really feel that we both have such aligned minds, I mean, we can tap into the same frequencies and really break bread in the same bandwidth, that really actualizes and activates that joy, that power of happiness.
Definitely, 100%, man. I think there is a acknowledgement that because I think it's because we both have done a level of work within ourselves to realize that. The person pointed out that there are people that maybe don't have the mental capacity, or the because of trauma haven't because they're in survival mode, I guess, are not in the position to tap into that space within them that is eternally joyful, because of the kind of like layers of mind, and trauma, and obviously Gabor Mate goes into that, and into that kind of connection with the parent and things like that. So I can understand where that person's coming from. But there is also a choice, that the individual can take. For example, do I binge watch a Netflix series, or do I choose to read a book, or do I choose to practice some sort of self-care routine? So we I think also we should maybe look into the mechanism of mind, and how mind has become conditioned within our societal structure that creates the perpetuation of a stagnant state of awareness, and how many fall into that trap of a self-perpetuating mechanism that creates limitation. And just to identify and relate to that, because there was a point where I feel like I was quite limited in my thinking and in my attitude, and where nature and nurture comes in. So there is part of my nature that is a seeker, that seeks. There's a part of my nature that helped me to arrive at the place that I'm at. But there's also nurture in terms of my environment, environmental factors that sometimes created hardship, sometimes created situations that were difficult but necessary for me to align with my inner nature, and that sense of inquisitiveness and that sense of longing for something more, to arrive at a state of happiness and state of inner contentment. So I guess the question is, how much is it your own innate desire or longing for something more fulfilling in life.
Yeah.
As opposed to nurture your environment. Like, where do they meet, and how do they dovetail? How much is your external environment a factor to your internal recognition of happiness?
So many powerful points, very well shared. And what stands out, or to put it in perspective, how it computes in my mind is we all carry a load, or when we grow up, we begin to accumulate a load, and that load could be said to be trauma or stagnant energy, which has been come from experiences that hasn't been metabolized and basically impressed our soul or our being in negative ways that are disempowering, and blocks our natural capacities, our divine qualities, that of joy, that of love, that of compassion, that of strength, that of will, that of peace. And as we accumulate ideas of who we are, what is real, what the world is, that starts to inform our nervous system. That starts to inform our body. So we develop neural networks that are not based in joy, that are not based in happiness, but that are based in lack. And they are centered around those points of trauma that we've accumulated over childhood.
Yeah.
And as we step into adulthood, we all have this baggage, this luggage of both stagnant, inert, and heavy negative energy in our system. And this negative energy will significantly limit our capacity for happiness and our ability to really engage life and really be vital, because it blocks energy, it blocks the flow, it blocks motion. So what you speak to is so powerful because it puts into clarity. So we have this, this state, our actual state of affairs, these blockages, this trauma that are limiting us on a significant level, and they developed over time. So to rewire our body, to rewire our brain is going to take time as well. But to make that process actually come into life and start engage requires choice. And that is what the commitment you spoke to, that we commit to our highest truth, that we commit to our fulfillment, and that we commit to our authentic self, that we commit to heal. And with that intention, so we have an intuition, I can become more. There is a higher possibility that I'm not tapping into yet because I am stuck where I am, but there is a possibility of tapping into that. Shall we make that choice? Boom. Okay. Now I intend to actualize. I intend to liberate myself. I intend to free myself of that trauma. And that starts a process that really activates and manifests a new timeline of healing. That is an evolutionary process. And then the wheel starts to roll. And we can begin, if we approach this effectively with sincerity, to first and foremost develop a deeper understanding of who we are, and with the new insight and the debunking and the metabolism of these trauma, begin to rewire our body, our nervous system, so that it's aligned with these capacities and these divine qualities that we're speaking about, and in this particular instant, happiness and joy. And like we said, that's a process that takes time, but the essential step for everybody, which is immediate, is the choice.
Yeah. Start where you are.
Start where you are.
Yeah.
And for everybody, this is a journey. This is a journey. So the significant step is the commitment to love and the devotion to truth. And when that is in place, your destiny is already fulfilled. It's a matter of process. So just enjoy as much as you can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And that balance between like the serious approach to dealing with the kind of the baggage, the trauma, and the lightheartedness as well, because you can't just be serious about it the whole time, because then that creates rigidity. and it creates this expectation and this kind of like heaviness to the process. And some of it's, some of the stuff that you may uncover, it will be heavy, but if it's seen with this higher perspective of like, you are an unlimited eternal soul, and you are infinite, it puts that perspective on the whole journey of being okay. There can be humor, there can be. And I was reading this thing about seeing life as like a motion picture. So like, how the whole screen, the whole play, the whole drama of it. If we were to actually, I had this thought the other day when I woke up, and I was just like, what if I woke up with amnesia? Like, what if I genuinely woke up and I didn't know who I was? This would be just an amazing experience, man. Like, you'd be looking around like, what? Like, this. Yeah. It's just like, you'd be looking at everything in your space, the environment, and being like, wow, what is this?
Yeah.
But it's because of the association with the things as we think we know them, and it creates that kind of, like Krishnamurti talks about how you teach a child the name of a bird, the child never sees the bird again, because we start seeing in form, and then that form becomes mundane because it becomes repetitive. So yeah, I think it has to be that balance between okay, I'm going to be serious about my life, I'm going to take responsibility for my actions in my life, but also I'm going to see this as this drama that's unfolding, and I can be the witness of what's happening.
Powerful insight. And I think, bringing attention to that balance, I think, is super powerful. Actually, one thing I've come to in my life is I've removed the word serious from my own personal vocabulary. What I work with is playful sincerity, and for me that is a complete approach. Seriousness, I don't know. I don't work with seriousness. I don't do that. Sincerity, yes. I can be intensely sincere and I can be playful, but serious, no.
I like that, man. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I guess certain words do have a heavy connotation, and
yeah.
There are certain words in the English vocabulary that do have too much weight to them and too much kind of like, what's the word? Stigma attached.
Yeah, and sincerity, in my opinion, is elevated seriousness. So it's serious evolves to sincerity.
Seriousness is almost like it's like it's something that's imposed upon you. It's like it's almost like, as you can imagine, the kind of idea of an adult to be, it's like, we need to be serious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for me, it implies some level of ignorance of the cosmic joke of any situation. How any situation, regardless if it's war or it's famine or if it's joy, lovemaking, it ignores that at the heart of the cosmos is always a smile. While sincerity holds space for that, I feel is connected to that universally.
Yeah, that's a good point, man, for sure. Yeah.
It's excellent consideration. And these views and these attitudes is so significant for how our lives manifest. So if we do engage the spiritual path or the path of self-realization, evolutionary process with seriousness, then we will manifest a theme within that context. So if we change our view and our attitude, then we manifest a completely different path. And then we need to really feel into the vibrations of like the cognitions or the key concepts that defines our reality, and really feel, is this what I want to manifest or something else? Because it will impact and influence our unraveling significantly.
Completely. The mirroring effect is real, It's, what you put out, what you focus on will be mirrored back to you 100%, man. And that's why choice is really important in terms of changing your environment, your inner landscape. I feel for me personally is essential to change the outer. And often there is this reverse happening. It's like I desire, and I hear this a lot, and this is something that I really want to bring into my teaching and into the mentorship that I pursue, is that is that people state what they don't want. They'll be like, oh, I'm in this situation, I don't want this, I don't want that, but it's like, what is that telling you? What's in that? Let's unpack that. You're basically saying to the universe, this is what you don't want. So the universe has no bias. So when you're focusing on what you don't want, you're going to get more of what you don't want, rather than saying, this is what I want. This is I want to create meaningful, sincere, authentic connections.
Yeah.
I want to have a sincere connection with myself. I want to heal. And state that continuously, and that's what you will manifest.
Affirmations. And I know affirmations is something that you're really engaged with, and me myself as well. What came up for me as you were speaking about that is, it was a really good thought. What did you speak about again?
So I was talking about people that state what.
Yes, I got it. So, what came up for me is, if we apply the approach of saying what we don't want, what we need to do is we need to state it and then radically disengage, as opposed to engage in the loop of I don't want. We need to basically state, I don't want this, and then basically actually kind of cut off from it, as opposed to kind of I don't want and then fly with it. You see? Did you catch my drift?
Yeah, completely. Similar to expectation, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you have an expectation, and then you create an attachment around that expectation, and then the person or the situation that arises is not meeting your expectations, so you get disappointed, and you feel like you suffer because of it, rather than doing a thing and creating out of joy, creating out of pure presence, and detaching from the fruit of that labor, and then moving on to something else. And then what comes, usually for me, in my experience, there will be something that comes from that you don't expect as the reward. But when you're expecting a reward, then you often are met with disappointment.
Yeah.
Because nothing comes in the way that you expect it to, because that's just the nature of existence.
Well said. Very well said.
And the nature of mind, there are certain things you can manifest through visualization, no doubt, but often it will often manifest in a different way to your expectation.
Yeah, this is my experience as well. And I really caught myself, I've ceased to engage in trying to predict the future, and unless it's absolutely relevant and something I have to do on a very basic survival kind of level, because I just don't see the point. Just engage the present fully and really be fully invested in fulfilling every moment, and then trust and allow life to unravel. allow the mystery to reveal whatever is to come, and basically brace yourself for everything. And then, and with the empowerment that comes with that, as opposed to trying to to navigate reality in a future present sense, trying to create the conditions that you think is most ideal and most conducive. I feel it's such a fragile way to be, a fragile way to live.
Take care of the present, and focus on the present, and the future will take care of itself. Yeah, definitely. And why is it, do you feel, that humans in general are so fixated on the future?
Fundamentally, I would say conditioning. It's a conditioning. It's and also that in order to be present requires capacity. That we haven't, as a civilization, we haven't grown up in communities that are necessarily of wisdom, that teaches us how to be with ourselves, how to be with life, how to experience life intimately. So, and also how a lot of our upbringing is, we're met with experiences that are too intense for a child to deal with. But even when we come into adolescence and early adulthood, we're not taught how to process those unmetabolized experiences of trauma or of negativity that are stored in our body. So we're conditioned, we're conditioned, socially conditioned, with certain life perspectives, with certain ideas of what is important, what is unimportant. So we get stuck on the dimension of survival. And on the level of survival, everything is very future oriented. When will I get my next meal? Where will I sleep? How will I be comfortable? All these survival based intentions and hopes and fears. So that propels us into future, and it propels us into past, while this presencing requires capacity and wisdom and understanding to be with what is, and a connection to those, to a higher intelligence almost, and to that trust and to that faith. So it's a more subtle way of living, and for a child it requires guidance. So if we don't have people in our peer group who can actually teach us this and reflect that back to us, we're just gonna, our impulses and our, the animalistic body and the lower instinct are gonna govern our lives.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, great point. And you made me think about how in the work of Gabor Mate, he talks about how when we send our children to school, they're governed and taught by their peers, as opposed to adults, and that's a trap in a sense, because they're underdeveloped, they're undernourished, and obviously if they're taught and they have unwholesome ideas about life, then they're going to share those ideals, and that's going to create more trauma and more resistance to the present, because it creates, because of fears and because of these social expectations. Yeah, so that was a great point you made, and I think that really sums up that that collective dilemma. Of not really living, because if you think about happiness, bringing that back, being a present state of awareness, that if we're consistently fixated on the future and the past, then we're not living in the present. So therefore, where are we? Where is the mind? Where are we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, while I'm sitting here listening to you and with this conversation, I'm intimate with the discrimination and the distinction between, being a force of presence versus being consumed in the mind. How presence has a substantial quality to it, like an alive, substantial, feeling quality, while the mind is so ephemeral and basically, how to put it? What's your sense of that? What's your sense of that distinction?
I feel like we give too much credence and energy to the mind, because for me it's when you inquire into it, it doesn't really have much substance. It's continuous change, and continuous change means that you are led by it. It's like a roller coaster or like a whirlwind.
Yeah.
It can pick you up and really spin you out. Whereas being grounded in your connected to your body and grounded, and then feeling into what is present and feeling into your heart and whatever that means to you. For me, the heart is the gateway to having more stillness. And stillness for me implies a attitude of tranquil abiding in what is here. And as we talked about in the what's embodied within the stone tanzanite, the alignment of mind and heart, that is really a key to becoming more of an integrated human being, is we have become imbalanced. And I really like the Chinese proverb, the man who is top heavy falls over.
What a powerful statement. I love that.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
You can imagine that. You're just, you have like this amazing amount of information and intelligence, but it's like weighing you down, and it's like you can't keep balance, because it's like you're too up here.
For real.
So to really bring that down into your body's intelligence, your body's wisdom, and to really like move out of the mind into the space of presence is such a great awareness. And it doesn't really take that much to really shift your awareness to the present. And sometimes I do catch myself, even though I know these practices, I do catch myself overthinking, being too much in the analytical aspect of my mind, and the judgments and the fears that kind of come in to the rationalization of who and what I am and all that entails. But it's quite easy. It's quite easy to shift into presence. It just takes a slight, just a shift in awareness.
Yeah.
How do you feel in terms of what gets you into that state of presence? Do you feel that it is an effortlessness, or do you feel that it requires some effort to fully be present?
Yeah. Definitely been a practice, and that you begin to master more and more over time. So initially it was coming to presence was more like effortful, or I wasn't really in the beginning. Initially I wasn't really clear on the distinction between presence and non-presence. So that was something that had to develop over time. And as you become more intimate and it becomes more and more clear, you become more and more familiar with presence, then you know more exquisitely and clearly what you're going to and what is not present. So as that difference becomes clearer and clearer, it's become so evident when you're not present and when you're present, because it's become refined. That differentiation has become very refined and clear in your consciousness. So now I would say presence is an awakening. You awaken to presence because presence is the actual state of affairs. That is the truth. And when we're not in presence, we are in ignorance. So we've lost ourselves. We've been consumed in thought. We've been consumed in the particulars, and we're generating narrative stories about reality instead of embodying and living reality. So, and now I feel that presence is default. That presence is default. And when you could say, and then like you just said, in instances there is this intensity of mind activity, emotion comes up, and then you're really tested, because those thoughts and those narratives has a certain charge, and that the intensity of that charge will challenge your capacity of presence. And if the charge is bigger than your capacity, you will get consumed, and then you will basically be rattled in that unpresent state. While with practice, our capacity increases more and more as well. So our ability to remain present even in stormy weather then becomes established. And with that, like you spoke so beautifully to, is the equanimity that then opens up. And also our ability to really embody reality also when it is stormy, when it is the mind is very active. One thing in particular I feel myself to have challenges being present in, though, however, is when I'm laying down and I can't sleep. Usually my mind will go running into these narratives, man, and staying present is just very difficult laying down in my bed. I don't know why. Do you have the same thing, or is this just me?
To be honest, my sleep for me is just boom. It's like I
Always.
pretty much always
Yeah,
my
yeah,
head
yeah.
hits the pillow and then I'm gone.
No, we did.
So yeah,
Man.
sleep is not really an issue for me. I do at certain points of the day have an active. My mind is more active than others,
Mm.
but genuinely, I feel what helps is I read before I sleep, and I put dim lighting on, and I have a
Mm.
ritual, shall we say,
Yeah.
that helps me to get into that state of okay, my body's coming down, my mind's coming down, I'm going into this restful state. And it's there's this book called this Sleep Revolution, or something like that, and it's all to do with how important sleep is, and also how we can get a restful sleep based upon what we do, our activities before we head to bed.
Mm.
For example, if you have bright lights on, that type of blue light affects our mind, and because it's similar to the sunlight.
Mm.
So our mind, our body thinks that we're in the height of midday. It's wake up time. And obviously the screen, the light of the screen, and the information that we take in before we sleep, all of that has an impact on our quality of sleep and the ability to get into that restful state.
100%. And that is actually skill. Like the practice is a practice, that one you speak to design a lifestyle conducive for health and conducive for flow and harmony ultimately, so that you have that natural curve when you wake up. You have your morning practice, and then you go into beta brainwave states, and this, that, and the other, gamma, whatever. And then when you go to sleep again, then you have that natural pattern, and then preparation for sleep, basically. I think, this is definitely something I have generally I apply, but lately, sometimes I've kind of swung more into being on the computer and watching things and stuff like this,
Yeah.
and that definitely makes an impact. Yeah.
Yeah. No, what you were saying now brings to mind this 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 idea, this phrase that I heard: the art of effortless living. And the art of living is really interesting to me, and it has been increasingly. I'm increasingly becoming aware of the art of living, because, for example, with the sleep, you know, there is an art to it. There's a particular method that you can get more restful sleep. With eating, with not just eating what you consume physically, but what you consume mentally.
Yeah.
How you and now I've been visiting an osteopath. I've been about 5 times. I go once a month now. How we position our bodies, how we walk, how we carry ourselves, how we elevate, you know, if we elevate our shoulders and our head, and how our head's positioned, the spine, the central nervous system, and the brain, you know, how important they are to be kept in harmony. It you know, once you start to delve into the art of living, you start to realize everything you do, how you speak, how you command yourself, how you express yourself, all become activities in which you can improve and perfect. And then the awareness of keeping yourself in that perpetual state of harmony, I mean, is a skill.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a skill to navigate all of these things, especially in our modern chaotic environments, you know. Because like you were saying before, our nervous system and our sensitivity is such that our modern environments are not conducive to keeping ourselves in perpetual harmony.
True.
There are things that come in, you know, radio waves, gamma waves, you know, now 5G, all these things that disrupt our natural equilibrium. So we need more than ever to create lifestyle regimens that keep ourselves in perpetual harmony.
100%. And I feel this is so relevant for everyone. This is relevant for everyone, and it's something that it's been in my field of consciousness for some time, and I've termed it optimized life design. So optimizing one's life design in terms of how you conduct, and it's because it's basically optimizing your reality, optimizing your day-to-day living. And in order to have that, or in order to make that true in the first place, we need to be clear on what we want. If we really want harmony, then
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's a great point. Do we actually want it?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and this is what I've observed in codependency, in terms of like relationships, and in level of toxicity that people invite within their relationships, is that we frame our relationships with others based upon toxicity, and then as a result, our relationship with ourselves. So that's a really good point. Do we actually want to have greater health, greater harmony? And sometimes, if you look at, like, for example, the idea of Stockholm syndrome, whereas the captor, the victim falls in love with the captor, because the captor creates this environment where abuse is so much of a part of their existence. They fall in love with the captor, and they almost invite in or become to like the abuse. And for example, when I read this book by a guy called, it's called The Food of the Gods, by his name is, it'll come to me in a second, Terence McKenna. He talks about smoking, for example. He said, no one on the face of the planet likes smoking the first time they do it. It's repulsive because your body just rejects it. There's no way that you're going to be like, Oh yeah, that's great. It's like it's toxic.
Yeah,
Your body is going to repel it immediately.
yeah,
But if you reintroduce it time and time and time again, your body not only do you like it, do you tolerate it, you begin to like it.
yeah.
So that shows you the mechanism of our mind and our habitual patterns of behavior
Mm.
is that we sometimes grow to become accustomed to negative environments or toxic environments to
Mm.
the point where we actually start to enjoy these things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and become addicted.
yeah,
Become
exactly,
addicted. We become
exactly.
addicted, and a lot of people, for instance, are addicted to stress. The release the release of stress hormones that becomes gives people a kick, and they become addicted. They want their stress, so and that can go for so many things because there's many addictive behaviors and ways of being and food and smoking
And now with modern technology, with social media, and
stimulation.
I found that within myself. I recently put a pause. I deleted my main feed on my social media account. I've deleted all my pictures because I realized within myself, even though I'm self-aware and I'm aware that of health and presence,
Mm.
these things are very, very smart. They're very powerful. It's called a smartphone for a reason. And I sometimes use satire. I said, my phone is so smart that it controls my mind.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
that it can lead to an addiction because of the endorphins that it releases and that kind of buzz that you get,
Yeah.
the serotonin and the things like that. So it's important to evaluate and ask yourself real questions. Do I really want health and happiness and well-being? What does it take to get me there?
Yeah.
What am I prepared to give up?
That's it. And that speaks to the degree that we want harmony.
Yeah,
What we're willing to give up, that needs to be countered with a strong desire
yeah,
to actualize, to fulfill our
exactly.
potential. And this needs to be cultivated like you brought in with affirmations, with intentions. And you could say on some level, um, it's funny how some of us find that motivation and that interest and that desire quite effortlessly while others don't. And some people might be listening to this and see the possibility, but they don't really have like the belly motivation to I'm going to transform my life.
Yeah,
I'm going to choose my highest possibility. I'm going to make that my reality, and I'm going to invest everything I have into that.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
a possibility for everybody, but
yeah.
it doesn't happen for everybody. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have pondered that, like why certain people aspire to a sense of harmony and health, where others have no they seem like they have no intention or inclination to do that.
Yeah.
And I was pondering upon an analogy for that, and for me, a great analogy is a farmer who has a whole handful of seeds, spreads the seeds in the field, um, but not all those seeds are going to hatch. Not all those seeds are going to blossom because it takes a certain environment for the seed to kind of come into fruition. The right amount of sunlight, the right amount of soil
Mm.
or nutrients in the soil and water for it to become established and to hatch out. And sometimes even the ones that do hatch out might not have the genetics to become fully established and to
Mm.
grow with vigor.
Yeah.
So it's again coming down to the environment and also
Yeah.
the inner uh, desire and inclination and the capacity and I guess the kind of history
Yeah.
that's contained within your cellular memory.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
complex affair. And the soul
Yeah.
landscape is a complex affair, but a brilliant analogy. Brilliant analogy. I think it's a very applicable analogy.
Mm,
Um, and
mm,
the landscape of a human being, both on the level of body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
The thing is, one thing that's been very alive for me lately is one lifetime is nothing.
Oh,
1 year
completely.
is nothing. 10 years is nothing. 15 years is nothing. It's so minuscule. It's so little, and I see how, as a civilization, as a society, we're conditioned to think so short term. We're thinking so, you know what I mean? We're thinking so immediately, so short term, and it's really limiting us in some significant ways. I don't think we're even slightly aware of how that really blocks growth and blocks perspective and blocks also a sense of freedom and a sense of possibility that I can. 10 years is nothing. Commit now. 10 years. When people hear 10 years, do this practice 10 years, or practice meditation for a lifetime, or practice yoga for a long time, and then in 5 years time you might be able to sit in cross-legged. People are like, what, 5 years?
I'm gonna like, 10 years, what?
I give you 1 month max.
Yeah, tomorrow. Like, I got my Amazon part. I ordered something from Amazon and it came the next day. It's like, come on, like,
Come on.
I'm talking about immediacy,
Yeah.
and that is our culture. We want immediate effect,
Yeah.
and that again comes with wisdom. Wisdom is cultivated over time, and that is why we're getting so many older people who are maturing into their later years, who desire to have youth rather than desire to cultivate this wisdom, because our culture is geared towards this youthful appearance and what youth entails. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about this sense of time and why we have this attitude towards immediacy. And I think it comes down to integrity and collective awareness, collective spiritual awareness and understanding. If you look at different cultures, you look at the Indian culture, unanimously, everybody within that culture would have some aspiration or idea around a unified God, shall we say, or spirituality. Whereas we're secular in the West, where we can choose, we have the free will to choose, and often it won't lead to a collective understanding. It will be led to an individualized understanding. And this, I feel that the individualism has its blessings, but it has its curses. Yeah. And for me, its curses are a lack of community, a lack of sharing of similar values. And so if we develop a depth into connecting with others that have similar values, then we will realize that other people will accept us where we are. We'll realize more deeply our gifts and our inward kind of realizations of what we can share, like our skills. And then that will lead to, as we share with each other, this soulful insight of what is beyond my individual ego and mind construct. So that creates this idea of timelessness. And it's really interesting. The book that I'm reading, Self-Unfoldment, Disciplines for Self-Realization, he states in the beginning that it is important to pace yourself and to know that this lifetime is nothing. Like you were saying, this is just a blip. That your soul is on this journey through many, many spheres of existence, and we can actually breathe. To actually, okay, let's breathe and realize that, okay, we don't have to rush through this life.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we actually can actualize even more.
Yeah.
Which might be counterintuitive to some people. It might be contradictory to some people, but it really makes a lot of sense when you slow down. You can embody so much more,
And you can live with quality.
Exactly, and that's another great point. Is because look at the medical establishment. People get to a certain age, they get to 60, 70, full of pills. You know, they're on, you know, so many different forms of medication to prolong their life. But what about the quality of life?
Yeah.
And this is something that is really, really important to me, is to live with quality. Is my priority. Is I spend money on good food.
Yeah.
On I do exercise on a daily basis. Health is wealth. And once you start to have more quality of connection and eating and thinking, then your quality of life becomes so increased that your relationship with your body and mind becomes a joy, and all your moments become more joyful and filled, that you go out. You know, if I go out into nature and I explore, a whole day in nature for me is like a lifetime. Do you know what I mean? So it's relative. It's your experiences are relative to your quality of thinking and feeling and consuming. And we are all born consumers in this society, but becoming an intelligent consumer is important. Is what you consume, how you consume, where it's coming from. And when you start to consider these things, it just enriches your life. And like you said, your quality of life just goes up. And if we analyze certain cultures that have longevity, like for example, the Japanese culture, the quality of their food, they eat a lot of sea vegetables. They practice certain martial art, Tai Chi and movement. And so, yeah, I think that slowing things down is really, really important in life, and to really consider what we are doing, how we are participating, how we are manifesting, how we are expressing ourselves is so integral to health and longevity and vitality.
Brother, what come up for me as you spoke is slow down to your authentic, to the native authenticity of where you're at, then speed up. Do you get my drift?
Yeah.
Then one can begin to speed up. But if you're speeding up before, like, then you're running in front of yourself. You know what I mean? As opposed to like being where you are and then really engaging your consciousness. And by engaging your consciousness, you can really accelerate in this lifetime and manifest a lot, actualize a lot. That needs to happen from home.
Yeah, definitely. And I've come across, and I was actually mentoring a woman recently, just a few days ago, and she was telling me how she'd been traveling so much. She'd been everywhere. I've been here. I've been to India. I've been to there, and she, we were talking about slowing down, and she said, "Yeah, I've been running away from myself." But yes, I've been having these amazing experiences in different countries with all these different people, but I haven't felt happy within myself. So now, we were reflecting together that it's important for her to integrate and to go in and to actually find stability within herself, and from that center, she can carry that awareness wherever she goes. But it's really important to stop running away from what and who you are and facing who you are.
Mm. I think that's a beautiful point to wrap this conversation up for this time. It's a complete package, or it's a package that is wrapped nicely with some a lot of joy and a lot of creativity and insights.
I really love the way that it flows, man. It's great to connect, man, and things just flow effortlessly.
Effortless.
Yeah.
Absolutely effortless. So many good points. And such a synergetic conversation, mutual empowerment and mutual shining.
Indeed, man.
Excellent. So both me and Samora do mentoring. So if anyone feels inclined to reach out to us, either for whatever, if you have questions, comments, or inquiries, we're always receptive and open for that. You can find Samora on his Instagram. What is it?
Samora underscore Yeboah, which is spelled SAMORA _YEBOAH.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. I highly recommend people checking him out. He posts a lot of amazing stuff. You can find me on theartofelvolution.org, which is a website. And other than that, yeah, comment, send questions. Everything is welcome. And yeah, that's all I have to say for now. Lots of love.
Thank you, man. Thank you, brother, for inviting me on again. And I really appreciate this connection and the time and the energy you give and what we share. So, thank you.
Aho, brother.
Aho.